Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner Podcast. I'm Dylan. I'm your host. And guys, the reason that we're here, the reason this podcast exists is because we want to help the industry. Whether you're in construction, whether you want to be in construction, whether you know somebody in construction, it's our job to really help break down, deconstruct the industry and help you to become better, a better professional, a better contractor, just better in general. We talk mindset, we talk tactics, we talk strategies. We're going to talk hiring and firing and training today. But through this podcast, we're again serving the construction industry from being the design side to contractor side to the trades to basically anybody that's involved with the construction industry. So that's what this show is about. And if you like this show, the Construction Corner Podcast, go ahead, share it with a friend, share with a colleague. Again, we're here to help make you better. And if you have any questions, any topics you want covered, something that you've been irking to maybe tell your boss or a colleague, and you don't want to do it, but you want us to cover it, we're more than happy. You can find all of our contact info below. And with that, guys, just share the show. It's that simple. So without further ado, what is going on, my blue collar badass?
It's another beautiful day. We're just in the thick of it here. I say that every time we record now, but this spring, man, spring of 2020 is going to go down in the history books for being quite possibly the busiest on record in the construction industry. It is nonstop.
I pulled up construction or housing starts yesterday again, and it's as of April, seasonally adjusted. It's at 1.7 million starts.
Craziness.
A year ago, it was 900,000. So it's basically doubled.
Almost double. In years of record high pricing and record low product and material availability. Something's working. So let's just hope it keeps working.
And it's crazy. I was talking to a friend in St. Louis, and what he was saying, because he's putting his house on the market, and that it's slightly cooled off, but only because of time of year. People are, it's Memorial Day, the kids are doing all this stuff, so they're not really looking because, like you, they've got baseball and everything else going on that ultimately they can't go look at houses. So it's a like weird little time of year, but he's like, prices are still great. There's just not as much competition because, again, people are dealing with end of year school stuff.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, as a seller and a buyer, it's probably a little less stressful right now if you're gonna jump on that ship and try and get it done. So maybe instead of 20 offers in a day, there'll only be 15.
Still great on well, at least if you're selling.
It's great on the selling side. It's got to be stressful if you're trying to find somewhere, but as long as you're able to move quickly and make decisions quickly, then you should be fine.
Which in life, making quick decisions is a great skill to have.
Absolutely. You kind of touched on it though, and that with my 3 boys and this crazy sports schedule we have, there's nothing left in the tank to move quickly on a real estate deal right now. Maybe in a month.
And I'm just gonna make a hard right out of this because I don't see any way else. Today we're gonna be talking about right people, right seats, hiring, training, potentially firing, but in getting the right people in the right seats. There's a ton of books about this out there that you can read, but we'll give you a Cliff Notes version here, which is what we do, is distill it down into its essence, into the top tips, best secrets that you need to be successful in this industry we love to call construction. So Matt, how do we put the right people in the right seats?
So this is a very topical conversation for me personally. As of the day we're recording this, I have an interview scheduled late this afternoon. We're looking to hire a new project manager to bring on board. So it was a good time to kind of reflect on everything I try and tell people about best practices for hiring and finding people, and remind myself what kind of our own feedback channels and what we're looking for. So what we really base a lot of our business operations now on what's called the EOS model. It stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's a phrase coined by a guy named Gino Wickman, originally in the book Traction. If you haven't read it, it's worth a read. It's an easy read. I think there's probably 4 or 5 adjoining books now, but Traction is the main one. And they talk about a lot of things, really, from core values to vision and planning for your business, to hiring, to firing, to the whole gambit. So it's kind of a, couple 100-page roadmap for how to run a business is the way we look at it. One of the main points in this is this right person, right seat phrase. And basically what it means is you all know who the right people are. That's pretty easy to gauge, right? Once you have a team in place, or whether you have a team or not, when you meet someone, you can kind of tell if they're the right person for your team, for your business, for your project, whatever it may be. And that's really based on intrinsic, knowledge that you have. It's based on, do they mesh with your core values, all that sort of stuff. The other thing then is, the other component of that is right seat. And this is the one where I think a lot of, especially construction firms, have a real hard time with, because we rely a lot on job descriptions. And most job descriptions are a page, 2 pages, 3 pages of utter bullshit. It's task-based and it's not results-based. So it's a listing of, this person will write subcontracts, they will manage a schedule, they will manage a budget, blah, blah. And it's fine. I mean, it's a part of what it is that we do, or what this position does, but it's not what we're looking for. You could probably make a robot to do a lot of those tasks, and there are probably people out there making them right now. That'll be a different episode, but what we really need are results driven, goal oriented people. And so we try to push the results of the position versus the task. So it gets a little woo woo at times, it's a little tricky to define, but it's supposed to be. And when you focus on results first, at the end of the day, I don't care what you do to get there. I mean, within reason. If your tasks change, fine. But if you can be a results producing member of our team, then you're going to be a good fit.
So many good things in there. And one of the things that I want to kind of pull out is, one, results driven, and even going back a little bit, is the pure job description and how much fluff that we put in there. And one of the things I was thinking about as you said that, and finding the right people, finding the right seats, is how often our job descriptions really deter probably some really good people from applying to your position, right? Like, think of all the job descriptions that are out there, and the one that really strikes me is how long you've been doing something, because that frankly doesn't necessarily qualify you for the job. So there's been many times in my career where I kind of went for it and it worked out, and or kind of applied or got headhunted or whatever, but it was, you needed 5 years of experience. I'm like, well, I don't have this, but like I match a bunch of the stuff they want me to do. Is the year thing going to disqualify you? And I think a lot of firms put that in there for, I have no idea why, when somebody can actually execute all the like tasks, the results they want. This year thing, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 20-year veteran, which you're never going to find, like you got to pay a lot of money for somebody that's been in this industry for 20 years. So that's one thing that I want to like really hammer on, is in that job description, because you're probably going to deter a lot of people that should be working in your organization if you become results oriented, not some arbitrary year.
100% agree with you, with a caveat though. So for your main point there, I'm in complete agreement, right? You don't necessarily judge the quality of a person by the number of years or the number of months or days or hours they've done something. There's countless examples, I think, of newbies to the industry, to any industry, who can come in and make a really positive difference right off from day one. We just recently hired a 20-year vet to the industry, so I can also concur about the other point you made, but it was also well worth it. And there's strategic reasons for that, because there are things that come with years of experience that are desirable, to say the very least. But my caveat to what you just said is, and this is something I've personally experienced quite a few times in the last couple of years, we have tried the online job posting thing because it's easy and it's relatively inexpensive. Indeed, in particular, they have some pretty decent metrics and data-driven reporting that I didn't know existed until our last round through this. I actually got a call out of the blue from one of their tech guys, and he said, your job posting is getting, like, I'm making up numbers, like 1 million hits, but you're not talking to anyone. Why? And I said, well, I'm going to keep this politically correct for our show, but we would get, 200 resumes in a day easily. And out of those 200 resumes, maybe one was worth even thinking about. And we would just get flooded with resumes, typically completely unrelated to the position. And so there's lots of reasons that go into that. And that's a cultural and values-based discussion for another venue. But what the guy told me was, here's what you can do in the actual title of the posting. So we just had, construction project manager, done. He suggested put construction project manager, period. And then we said, 3 to 5 years minimum verifiable experience. And he says, what happens is, if you put that there, these trolls, for lack of a better word, who do nothing but just scan for a job, they'll go right past it because you're kind of throwing it out there. And we did that, and instantly the number of resumes we got dropped, by 90%, but the ones we were getting were actually quality potential candidates. Now the 3 to 5 years thing in that case didn't mean shit to me. We could say that all we want, but like we already talked about, if someone comes in and really, wows my socks off, I don't care if they have 2 days of experience. So, but to that end anyways, simply as a weeding out criteria, it was actually pretty useful, but it meant nothing to our business operations.
That's super interesting. Like, tactically, that dropped the number of applicants, and I can totally see that. And I think it's also, for you, you're carrying that mentality through, right? This was just a pure weeding piece versus like, oh, you don't have 3 years, I'm not going to look at your resume type of weeding tool. And I think that's a great caveat, like, because that's not something like I've experienced in doing that. So fantastic. I mean, that's super tactical and practical.
I was thrilled. I thought the guy was full of garbage. And I said, I was getting kind of ornery with him on the phone. So, we're paying whatever it is. It's not much, but it's not zero. I said, I'm paying this every click I get, I'm paying you, and the clicks are garbage. And when he showed me that, and literally within a day, within 24 hours, it worked, it changed things around, I was amazed. And I gladly paid for more of our clicks.
And this is the other thing too, is when you get advice from the platforms, and I'm not going to say that every piece of advice is good, but in like their trainings on like, so again, to get pretty tactical is, so if you run ads, which I know like this is not typical, but if you need to for anything, for a project, for bond referendums, for other things, to run ads, run traffic, trust those platforms. Like, whatever Google says works, they have all the data. Same with Facebook, like they have all the data, and they want you to be successful, so you spend money on their platform. Same with Indeed. Like if this guy gave you complete garbage information and it didn't work at all, you'd never use them again. And it's in their best interest to give you actionable, correct information to do things. And the same with like, I mean, we can go down the list, Procore and companies like that. I mean, they want you to succeed. They want you to use their platform. They want it to work, and to move forward. And companies that don't have like a full monopoly on how to do things.
Well, and that was just it. And like I said, I got kind of pissy with the guy originally because I just had this inherent distrust of him because I thought, oh, he doesn't really care. He just wants me to keep paying the per click fee. And I'm not going to go out on a limb and say he really cares about me, but
No,
he cared enough about the situation that he took a couple minutes out of his time and he gave me a pretty good actionable tip that created results right away. And
yeah.
while I'm still not convinced, and I never will be, that online job postings are a great place to find candidates for any role, if and when we do a posting again, I'll probably go back to them because of this.
Yeah, it's just another avenue. And again, the whole point of all this, right, is to find people that fit your core values. And one of the things that you can do is not lift your core values within your job descriptions. You can, if you are using Indeed, you can have them answer questions, right? So they actually have to type some stuff out, which then it's pretty easy to limit candidates. If they don't answer questions, you're not in, right? Like, how much do you want it?
And I would love that you brought that up because we started doing that also at the same time. And that was one of the easiest ways to weed people out. We post our core values right there in our job description. And frankly, I pulled up an old job description that I keep looking at, and it's making me cringe because it's written like it was probably written in 1980 or whenever it was that the first person I copied this from did it. And it's hot garbage. Our new one, it basically says, we're looking for a candidate. We're going to call them whatever said position is. You better fit these 5 core values because this is really what we care about. But then on Indeed, I went further and I have a list of make you really uncomfortable type interview questions that I ask everybody I interview ever, whether it's online, Zoom, in person. So I started just typing those out and made them required questions on the Indeed application. And it's amazing. 2 things were amazing to me. One, the number of people that just wouldn't answer them, period. They'd send a resume and that was it. And it was just fine. Click, done, gone. I won't spend a second looking at you. But the other thing that was amazing, and they're core value driven questions, we don't need to get into all of them, but there's some that people have heard, what do you do when you're walking out of you're late to your friend's wedding, you're walking out to your car from the store to get a card or whatever, and there's a shopping cart in the way. You and I have heard that one a million times. But some of the people that would answer it, most of them that did answer it, they kind of, at least psychologically, I think, fit what I was looking for, or they knew what I was getting at. And they'd have, answers like, my friend would understand if I was a little bit later, I'd put the carts away, blah, blah, blah. Good answer. But you'd get some who are like, man, F those guys. There's people getting paid to pick up that shit and they can come and pick them up themselves and put them away. It's not my job. And I was blown away at the first one. By the time I got to like the 15th one that said things like that, I thought, it's stunning to me that people think that way, first of all, that people are willing to project that. But it was also kind of reaffirming in the sense of how important our core values are to us, right? If I brought someone like that onto my team that had that mentality about some stupid question about a shopping cart, what are they going to do when one of my clients comes and starts asking them questions about why the building looks the way it does, or whatever the question is? It was kind of mind-blowing to even see someone respond like that.
And for years, and I mean, still, the vast majority of companies never ask even the remotest question like this, right? It's, what do you know about the thing that you're required to do? Not, are you a good person? Not, do you get pissed off at the stupidest of things? Like, those are never the questions or anything to elicit like a and really put a shopping cart back shouldn't elicit a emotional response. But if it does, like, yeah, I mean, in construction, you're going to get somebody yelling at you at some point. You're going to get, your feelings hurt at some point. And if you react to an inanimate object that way, man, I can't even imagine how you'd react to a real life situation.
To somebody in your face screaming. I mean, those are the kind of people that you're worried about pulling a gun on the site. I mean, really, it's not right necessarily, but it is the reality of, especially in an industry like construction. We get emotional, we're out in the field, people are working very hard physically, mentally, all the above. Tempers get heated, right? Because time is money. And anytime anyone questions anything, you have to stop producing. It costs you time, it costs you money. And, we've talked about stress levels and all that in other episodes. It shouldn't probably happen, but it does, not necessarily frequently, but there will be a time in any career in the construction industry, I would strive to say that you're going to get yelled at. You're going to get somebody pissed off at you for whatever, and tempers are going to get pretty heated pretty quickly. And if you can't control yourself, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've done my share of screaming and yelling. It happens once in a while. I typically sound like a drunken pirate. It's not my best moments. It typically doesn't produce anything great, but if you can't contain it to at least that level, and you have to escalate to the next level or getting physical or anything, you don't fit anywhere, but certainly not on my team.
No, and that's just it. I mean, it becomes an ego problem, right? Like, ultimately, that somebody insulted your work or what you were doing, anything like that. And it's, again, the biggest point here is ask some tough questions. Whether that's in person, and honestly, I would do it through an online form so you can weed out the people that don't matter real quick. And it just saves you a whole bunch of time and again, think of questions around your core values and put them in, hypothetical situations and see how people respond. And again, the whole thing is that if they don't match one core value, if there's an answer that's out of line within your set, right? If you've got 7 core values, you got 7 questions, maybe 10. If there's one question that just doesn't fit, they're not going to fit on your team. So it's an easy kick for, hey, you just don't match core values.
That was a very hard thing for me to learn, because by nature, contrary to popular belief, I guess, I'm a pretty emotionally driven guy. So I have this tendency to want to force a candidate to work, right? I want to force them to answer the damn question correctly, to fit with our core values, to convince myself that they are the right fit. And so I've made that mistake. I've brought people on board that didn't match one of our values. I brought people on board that probably didn't match any of them. And it always ends the same way. And it's not a good situation. It never lasts. It's just it's not worth it to me. It's not worth it to them, because that's the other part of this equation. And we've talked about it before too, so I won't belabor it too bad, but it's not necessarily that if somebody doesn't fit, these 5 core values on my wall here, that they're a bad person, but they just don't fit with our culture. So they need to go and find somewhere where they fit with. And it's not, good versus evil. It's just, but it's a quantitative approach now. And that I can very confidently, through my goofy questions and what I talk to people about in an interview, I can say, okay, check yes, check no. If they get a no, I'll shake their hand or I'll fist bump them, and they go on their way and they don't talk to us again. It's not a righteous thing. It's just, I know what works for our company. I know what makes us up, and this is what we have to have. It's non-negotiable.
Becomes really simple, right? At that point. And that's knowing. So right people, right seats, right? That's the whole topic here. So this is the whole finding the right people. The other side of it is actually looking at your business, at what you need, and determining what the right seats are. and who you actually need in your organization. And you might have some people currently, because if you've done this exercise, is does this person truly fit here, right? Is this person supposed to be a site superintendent, or would they be a better estimator, or project manager, project engineer? Like, what is their actual seat? Is this person meant to be a designer or an architect, or should they just be out shaking hands and kissing babies, right? Like, what is they fit everything in the core values, they're just not perfect for that role, whatever that might be. You need very detail oriented people for some roles, and you need dreamers and charismatic people in others. So it's look at your organization, and you might have to shake up quite a bit. It might be that you've figured it out, right? And by maybe happy accident, you have a lot of people in the right seats, and some of this might affect all the way up to your C-suite, right? And who's running what, and are they the right person for that, or should they be doing something else? And in those cases, it's going to be a big ego problem to get those people to potentially move aside or take different roles, if that's really the case. But it's to sit down, think as leaders in your organization, as executives, to figure out where people actually fit. And it's by no means easy. It'll take some thought. It'll take some time to figure out your org chart and who you actually need from top to bottom.
And you're going to suffer some bumps and bruises going through this process. And I can't stress enough this whole EOS concept. And I'm not getting paid to say this. We are still small enough that it doesn't make sense for us to hire what they call an integrator. They have their coaches like everybody does. Financially and just based on our numbers, it doesn't make sense yet. If we were bigger, or when we get to that point, I will absolutely bring one of these people in, because even just the book alone, it's got so much tactical value that you can put into place today. So there's the right people, right seat concept. Another one, and you were just kind of touching it, is called GWC, or get it, want it, capacity to do it. And it's another quick and easy kind of informal quantitative way to survey someone, whether they're a candidate for a new position or whether they're an existing spot on your team. So get it is pretty easy. Like, do they get it? Do they understand what the purpose of their role in your company is, or what it will be? Want it? Do they truly want it? And this one plays really heavily when you have people asking or looking into promotions, or moving up, or more, like you mentioned, moving into a different role. Maybe you have a superintendent who decides, I think I want to try out the project management side. Do they really want it though? Do they really know what that means? And that takes some time to really get deep into the psyche of that person, but you have to do it. And then the final one is capacity. Can they physically do whatever this is, either with their current workload, with their current mindset, with their current knowledge base? Do they have the tools in their toolbox to produce what you're asking them to produce? And if you can't answer yes to all three of those, again, it takes this frilly kind of vibration-based psychological mindset, and it shrinks it down to something purely quantitative. It's a yes or no. And it helps you make quick but informed decisions on people, which are quite possibly the most difficult thing in any business, the most difficult thing to understand and manage, and you need them.
Yeah, I mean, this is the hardest thing, and this is what we deal with the most in our industry, and I don't care what side of the table you're on in any of this, right? Design, contractor, sub, owner, you're dealing with a lot of people. You're dealing with a lot of egos and opinions on best practices, ways to do things, let alone, the rest of this. So when it comes to being able to make decisions for who you have on your internal team, but this could also go for external team as well. And And one of the guests that we had on, Kevin Amaro, he talked about having where he just said no to work from as an electrical subcontractor, said no to some general contractors. One, they probably couldn't take it on at the time. They were so busy. But again, that was one of his core values was to always deliver. And if you know you can't deliver, well, don't take the work. And that actually, ended up getting him more work because he was honest with people on what he could actually handle. So, and then just other contractors, they didn't jive. And as a sub, one of the things I've heard him preach fairly regularly is, hey, we're in their house. The general owns the site. It's, we're in their house. So keep it clean, keep it organized. We're on their turf. So if you can't get along with basically the person you're working for in that type of relationship, right, as a subcontractor, then it's not going to ultimately work. So when you find and pick partners, teammates, other companies to work with and team together on projects, this is just as important as your internal stuff. Do these people align with our core values? Does leadership match and jive? And can we work together? So it's not just internal when we talk about people. And then again, like you could even apply get it, want it capacity to do it to some of your trade partners. Are they at least at the leadership level, right? Do they understand how to do things? Have they done this before? Do they actually, like, can you tell that they're hungry enough and they're working, they're putting in effort that nobody's paying them for, right? That's usually the best indicator, is they're doing things above and beyond what's typically expected. And then do they have the actual capacity, do they have the people, the manpower, the technology, whatever, to execute on the project you're looking to partner with them on?
Absolutely. And, that's the beauty of what it is we do sometimes, and that from project to project, typically speaking, it's not always the same team, right? So in my role anyways, you're almost constantly building teams, a different team for a different project, a different team for a different task, for a different client. And they truly are partners. And if you don't think of your subs as partners, you and I won't get along very well. There's different mindsets out there still, but this is why Schaefer Construction, purely candidly here, we don't have a very high win rate on publicly bid work, because I have a very hard time just picking the lowest number and saying, all right, you're the guy. Frankly, I can't do it. So I try and bring in my design build, let's partner with our subs, build the team mentality into low bid work. And, usually we don't win it, just being open here. And usually we probably don't want it either. And it's my own ego or my own unwillingness to let work slip by that puts me there in the first place. But, there's so much of what we do that is based on people, and we value that immensely. It's the team, and we build it. We build the teams. We want to keep the teams together as much as we can. And that's not to say we don't work with new and different subs, because we do that all the time too, but we have a pretty strict vetting process, and it's very similar to the process we use to hiring employees. Now, I won't tell you that every single one of our trusted subs fits every single one of our core values, but they don't have to. They aren't working in my office on a daily basis, but they damn well better match our overall mindset and our overall approach to the market and approach to, to serving clients. And, if you take all of our core values and boil them down in a pot and pour them back out into a mold, that's really what you're getting at the end of the day. Like, are you a good person? Are you seeking to do this for good reasons? And if you get that out of it, if you bake that cake out of your mold, you're going to be a good fit. So, I mean, we work with new guys all the time, but there is still a process that we go after.
And that goes to setting expectations at the beginning of each project, especially if you're, building teams all over again. And for, any given project, if you're external facing in any way, shape, or form, you're going to have different, from the design side, right? As MEP, you probably have different architects that you work with. You're going to eventually get to where you work with similar ones or the same guys over and over again, but the people rotate, right? People leave jobs every every few years typically, so you're always going to have somebody new. You're definitely going to work with different contractors, from the general contractors to all the subs and the trade partners that you need to work with, to different owners and owners roles. Even if you have the same client, again, people rotate jobs, they move up, they do different things. And it's important to understand that, like, hey, at some point, hopefully at the beginning, is to outline expectations and find a way to do that. In most of the meetings I've been in for those expectations meetings, there's no talk of like core values, or even traditionally what's actually expected, right? Like, how long do we have to get back to you? Like, is it 24, 48 hours a week? Like, what is an expected, like, expediency for, communication? A lot of the basic stuff never gets talked about, frankly, in a lot of those expectations meetings, and a lot of things will get sorted out hopefully up front. You're gonna have to repeat yourself, so don't feel afraid or scared to ever repeat yourself in what you're looking to do, because that's just part of it. People don't remember, right? It takes it takes a while to ingrain, a lot of this stuff, even core values. It just does. You got to repeat it often until people truly get it.
Yeah, and we talk about core values so much on this show that we haven't had anyone tell us not to yet, I guess. So that's a good thing. But it truly is so important, so valuable in doing what we do. If you don't have, stepping stones and a roadmap to get where you're trying to go, then you're just going to end up wandering around lost. And that's what our core values provide for us. It's a roadmap. It's a system of analyzing of analyzing people, projects, clients, ourselves. We use them in everything, and we use them in our quarterly employee reviews, which again is another thing out of the book, as we affectionately call it, the book Traction. We do this we say quarterly, and then we get busy and they end up being, twice a year sometimes. But regardless, that's a big chunk of our employee review process. Are you still fitting these values? And if not, why? And again, just like when we are doing the initial hiring process, if we get to a point where in a review you've got a no next to one of our boxes, we're going to figure out why. What happened, what changed, here's how you, Dillon, are not meeting this value anymore. What's going on? Did something happen at home? Did something happen at work? You talk through it like humans, and we give people another shot. Now, if we come up on that next review and that same value now is questionable, it's a real easy decision on what has to happen. It's not fun or comfortable, but that's it. And it's really hard. Like I said in the very beginning, it's really, really hard to get to that point where you can use your core values as kind of the blanket, the stretched out blanket beneath the window of the burning building. But once you recognize that, once you jump, you're going to land in the blanket and not splatter all over the ground, it makes it a lot easier, or a lot simpler. It still isn't easy, but it is a little bit simpler, at least, to kind of use that as a guiding light to how you operate.
It makes everything not personal. It is really a simple way to look at it, that you're not mad at that person. You're not like upset at who they are or hey, you don't match these things that we say that we stand for. We correct behavior, all towards core values, right? Hey, you matched these at one point, you were aligned with us at one point, and now that alignment's just not there. I mean, what's going on, right? But it's you got to be personal to them, and hey, what's going on with you? Why aren't what happened to make you not align with these values? Like not what's wrong with you, or like in a bad way, right? You're not yelling, what's wrong with you? Like it's a, hey man, what's going on? Like compassionate type of empathy, conversation with that person to say, hey, at one point you aligned with this, right? That's why you've been here for however long. Something happened. Help, what can we do to help? And they may or may not want to talk about it, and that's totally fine. But ultimately it comes back to, we need players, teammates that are aligned with this. And if you're not, that's okay. It just won't work out here.
Yeah, and I feel like we talked about this point too at one point and sometime in the past, but sometimes it's a failure on our end, on as a owner, as a leader, because
For sure.
it doesn't matter how many interviews you do with someone. Until you are in the trenches with that person, you can ask them all my goofy questions and ask them, how many basketballs fit in the room, which I ask every single person I've ever interviewed. And if you tell me you have no idea, you don't get hired. There's a little hint. But no matter how many questions you ask them, you never really know that person until you've spent some time with them. And so it could be as simple as, well, I check the box that they fit this. We have a value, we call it, have a 100 to 0 mindset. And it's basically an aggressive mindset towards everything that we do in business. Anything we get involved in, we want to absolutely dominate. We want to win 100 to 0. No holds barred. If we're going to commit that we're going after this, well, we're all going after it 100%. And within the last few years, we had a situation where we brought a guy on board as a superintendent. I interviewed him. My business partner interviewed him. We thought at the time that he fit all of our values. Nice guy. There was nothing wrong with him. But over the course of a few projects, we realized, well, there's just something missing. And it was in this 100 to 0 mentality. You can't really grow that. It's either in you or it's not. And long story short, we ended up letting the guy go, but it was a very amicable thing. We brought him in, we explained what was going on. And he was kind of like, yeah, once I've actually seen that in motion, it really isn't me. And he left on great terms. We've given him recommendations and references for new positions at other companies. And I still talk to this guy a couple times a month. And it's been a year and a half, 2 years since he's been gone. And, that's when this system shows its worth to me. And it shows how valuable it really is. We've had the opposite experience too, where you guessed wrong in the initial interviews and they show their true colors and don't want anything to do with you once you say, all right, well, you're not meeting this, and this, and it turns into a screaming match. And we're all flawed. That's for sure. that's why we're humbly confident. But it's just, I can't stress it enough. You have to have something to be quantitative. You have to have a roadmap. You have to be strong in your convictions and your belief as to what you actually stand for. If you stand for nothing, you fall for anything, is the old saying. And this concept of the EOS system, this book, everything you and I have talked about today, it's all wrapped up in that, and being strong and confident in what you believe in, and believing that once you reach that point, you will make the right decisions and you will be moving in the right direction just by virtue of the work you did to get there.
I can't summarize the show any better. So honestly, guys, this is hugely important. It becomes almost impersonal, but in a way that you can make corrections in a personal manner, right? This is what we stand for. These are the standards that we're we're looking to achieve. We might fall short, but this is what we're aiming for, right? These are the standards that we hold ourselves to. And you can't fall short too often, but you need to kind of toe this line, right? This is where we start from and go from there. So ultimately, go and pick up the book Traction by Gino Wickman. It is a fantastic book. He's written some others that are also just incredible books. I know many business owners that have read it, implemented it, and had tremendous success in their organizations. They've turned everything around, and it's like their business Bible, if you will. It is the book to live by, and we can't ultimately stress it enough to, again, implement core values, implement the EOS, have your rocks, all those things to push you down the line. I know we didn't get into rocks and goal setting or any of that stuff, but it's still to implement, everything in that book step by step, keep coming back to it, keep rereading it, keep going through, have your check-ins with your people, make sure that everyone's still upholding your values. They're still the right person for the right seat. We all grow. We might outgrow our seats. We might, have things that happen in our lives, like kids or on the other side, divorce, that, just make us not the right people anymore. Or we need a different seat in the organization. Our time values shift, and that's okay. But it's to understand that with your people, continually evaluate your people. Again, it's it's a people game as much as you need somebody to move steel or operate a crane. Like, yeah, they need to have those specific skill sets, but there's also a mentality that goes along with it within your organization. Any other pieces you want to add before we close it out here, Matt?
I would just re-ask everybody again, give us a rating, give us a share, spread the show around. And while the Construction Junkie website is not currently working, it doesn't seem, keep checking it, because there is a little contest that he produces every year for construction related podcasts. If you get any value from what we're talking about, I'll let you know again once it's live and once the voting starts, but hop on over there, take 2 minutes out of your day and give us a vote. We'd appreciate it.
Absolutely, guys. We appreciate you listening. We appreciate you being a part of the show. And again, anything that we can do to help or any topics to address, we'd love to help you out. So until next time.